Hello there. Welcome to this episode of the Social Circle, where we will talk about what it means to humanize financial services and its positive impact on communities. In this conversation, we will explore Maybank's goal to improve the lives of 1 million households across ASEAN by 2025. I'm Nadia Azmi, and with me is Chief Sustainability Officer of Maybank, Shahril Azuar Jimin, who is going to shed some light on this goal, especially from a sustainability aspect.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you for having me, and hello to all our listeners. Maybank has been around for quite a while, since 1960, in fact. And one of the things that we've always been is that we've always been within the communities that we serve. One little snippet I'd like to share with you, and I don't know if many of our listeners are aware, is that we were known for quite a while as the coffee shop bank. Because when we first started, in the first few years, Maybank tended to open up near coffee shops.
Okay.
Because that's where people congregated, right? So people would sit there and go to the bank, meet the branch manager, and have conversations with the bank staff within the coffee shops around the branches that we have. So we were known as the coffee shop bank then. That ethos has grown over the years, that we still take pride in the fact that we are within the communities that we serve. And as we grow throughout all the 10 ASEAN countries, we have seen ourselves becoming the partner for national development.
Okay.
Yes. And so there's a long history of being in the communities, working in partnership with the societies that we exist in, and eventually the government and so on. So being in the hearts of the communities that we serve is a core definition of our humanizing financial services, right? And today, what humanizing financial services means is that, firstly, we try to make our services accessible. And this is very important because making our services accessible means that we try to create better inclusion, particularly financial inclusion. So that's the first part of what humanizing financial services means. The second part is to create long and trusted partnerships. And we're seeing that over the years as well. When I say becoming a partner for national development, it is not just suddenly we come up with a proposal to the government, this is what we want to do. But we have grown with our clients, and we have grown with various organizations and agencies and even governments to become their partner in their own development and ultimately national development. And the third definition of humanizing financial services is the ability to treat everybody with dignity, trust, and respect. So that's what humanizing financial services means to us. And today, it has become the mission of Maybank.
And so it has always been a goal for Maybank to assimilate yourself into the community, into the society, in what you are offering and your products and your financial services. It has always been about the people, right? So you are the Chief Sustainability Officer, or the CSO at Maybank. How does sustainability, or what is your role exactly when it comes to humanizing these financial products?
Interestingly, because sustainability seems to be a buzzword now, seems to be a very recent development. And that's funny, considering our world is 4.5 billion years old and we're talking about sustainability now.
Yeah.
I don't think that we are approaching sustainability in a very new manner. It's always been there. We care about our people, we care about our environment, we care about the communities that we exist in. It's just that over the last few years, I think there has been more concerted agenda and the ability to reach out to a larger audiences given technology, social media, and so on. So what sustainability today means to us, or certainly to me, is looking at the world from the lens of economics, environment, and social. That's what sustainability means. And ultimately, therefore, what would be the challenge for us as individuals, and especially for us as a big financial institution? And that would be the pursuit of economic development whilst doing well in the areas of economic, social, and governance. So here I'm introducing the next concept, which is the G, we ESG.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's when you talk about sustainability, you were asking me what does it encompass? When we talk about sustainability in general, it's about economic, environmental, and social well-being. But from the lens of a bank, we take that even wider. We apply the concept of ESG and we impose governance because we want to be sure that what we do is going through the right process. We do the right things, and ultimately we are also accountable to all our stakeholders.
And how would you say Maybank strikes that balance between the elements of E, S, and G?
That's my role in trying to bring all these elements together. It's not easy, because for many years, business organizations, we were guided by what is known as the shareholder primacy model, right? Whereby, and this is a textbook MBA, right? So the shareholder primacy model says that business exists for the shareholders, right? That has changed. And that has changed only in the last few years, amazingly, right? Because today, the world is looking at the stakeholder primacy model, meaning a commercial organization is not only accountable to its shareholders, but it's also accountable to its customers, to its societies, to the regulators, to governments, to the environment, to all the other beings that we share the world with. So that's what shareholder primacy, stakeholder primacy.
So Shahril, let's go back to Maybank's goal to improve the lives of 1 million households across ASEAN by 2025. A mammoth task, indeed. So how did Maybank come up with this goal?
Okay, when we wanted to come up with our present sustainability agenda, we looked at ourselves inward, and we realized that given our scale and our size, right, and as a financial institution, we have a big responsibility. And you know what? As a big financial institution, we have the power to move capital in the right direction. We have the power to move capital away from harm to social and environmental degradation towards positive social development. So that's the first thing we look at. And we realize, my God, we do have the power to do that. So what do we do? So we embarked on our sustainability journey in its present form, which just started about 2.5 years or 3 years ago. Yeah. So, and even my appointment was slightly less than 2 years ago. Yeah. So the moment that I was appointed on the 1st of March 2021, we did capacity building, set up our sustainability office and so on. And we said that, look, we need some guiding principles. We need to have certain stakes in the ground that will hold us all together internally as a group, as Maybankers, and also to send strong message out in terms of what we want to do. So we came up with 4 sustainability commitments.
Okay.
So, and that we'll run those sustainability commitments through various projects. We have a project management office, and these sustainability commitments, we made a big declaration about this about less than 2 years ago. So the first commitment that we made was to mobilize 50 billion ringgit in sustainable financing by 2025. Then that's a big amount. And sustainable financing means any types of financing that will create a positive contribution towards transitioning to a low carbon economy. Yeah. So the second commitment that we made was to improve the lives of 1 million households across Southeast Asia. Yeah. And we felt that was important because this is where we are present the most. Maybank is present in 18 countries, but we are very active in all the 10 ASEAN countries. Yes, the third commitment that we made is to achieve carbon neutrality of our own emissions, what we call Scope 1 and Scope 2 of the Greenhouse Gas Protocol by the year 2030, and to achieve net zero carbon emission by the year 2050. And the fourth commitment is to, for all the Maybank staff, whom we call Maybankers, I referred to earlier, to contribute 1 million hours collectively to sustainability. So commitment number 2 is to improve the lives of 1 million households across ASEAN.
Shahril, I have to ask you, how realistic do you think these goals are to achieve net carbon zero, for instance? How possible is it in this day and age?
So when you make this kind of goals, firstly, it has to be aspirational. Well, it has to be challenging, but it also has to be possible to achieve. Yeah, and we didn't want to make goals that we knew we would be able to achieve easily. And when we made these goals, there were a lot of things that we didn't know. Yeah, a lot of development over the last few years in terms of sustainability. We are still finding about things as we go along through the various COPs that we had in terms of what goes on in the world, what goes on, what affects the environment, what affects climate change, things like that, right? So all the four goals is very, very challenging. You alluded to the third goal of carbon neutrality by 2030, of net zero by 2050. Carbon neutrality by 2030 is not too difficult because that's our own emissions. As a bank, we don't emit much. It's just our own limits, right? And we have a plan that how we will achieve that neutrality by 2030. And we are already exceeding our yearly achievements. To achieve net zero by 2050 is more challenging because that's what we call our finance emissions. The emissions that are created through the lending and advances that we make to our clients. We need to work closely with our clients on that. We have started that process. We became the first bank in Malaysia to calculate and to announce our finance emissions. We did this last. Okay. We looked at our entire loans portfolio and using a methodology called PCAF, Partnership for Carbon Accounting Financials, very complex. We know exactly how much emissions are being created through the loans that we give out. Yeah,
right. This is all about being transparent.
It's all about, and we declare that in our sustainability report as well. Yeah. So going back to commitment number 2, improving the lives of 1 million households across ASEAN, challenging, but I'm happy to tell you that we're on track. And in fact, we're doing much better than on track. So we have yearly targets to achieve the 1 million households over 5 years, right? And at the end of the second year, which is 2022, we achieved nearly 900,000 already.
Okay. So that's how you measure it.
That's how we measure it. We have yearly targets, yearly commitments that we also report annually. And how do we achieve this 1 million? Yeah. So through 4 ways. Firstly, is through the social impact investment of Maybank Foundation. Maybank Foundation today is running on the ground social impact programs in 8 of the 10 ASEAN countries. But at the same time, through a partnership with ASEAN itself, through the ASEAN Secretariat, we are running an ASEAN-wide program that affects all the 10 ASEAN countries. Yeah? And a lot of money is being put into the social impact programs and social impact investments through Maybank Foundation. Secondly, is through our zakat deployment. We have a very progressive Shahril committee whom has agreed that, okay, we can move beyond giving Ramadan or Hari Raya gifts as zakat. So now we deploy zakat in more effective and more widespread manner.
And something that can be on a long-term basis. Perhaps.
Correct. Example, we set up water purification and wells in rural areas using zakat funds. We also set up a solar panel for the poor using the zakat funds so that they are able to enjoy electricity without having to pay for it. And the third way that we do this is through our community financial services, is through deployment of low-cost financing to enable people to buy their first homes, to enable people to buy cheap vehicles that will enable them to conduct business that will enrich their families. And the fourth way that we do it, and this is most interesting, is through deployment of cheap group insurance products, regionally. Because far too often, we miss the point that insurance is actually a very strong social safety net, right?
Especially, after undergoing the COVID-19 pandemic, more the reason that we need this safety net, actually.
Absolutely. Hey, can you imagine somebody, from the lower segments of society, single breadwinner, who's a fisherman, for example, their families dependent on the father, and if something, a misfortune happens, then the family loses a source of income and so on. So this cheap group insurance schemes we have rolled out throughout many countries in ASEAN over the last 2 years, and it's proven to be very successful.
Shahril, you've mentioned that so far you've actually reached 900,000 households, and that's a lot considering your goal of 1 million households. So by 2025, you may actually surpass this 1 million mark or goal that you've set. So let's delve deeper into the goal that you've set to improve the lives of 1 million households across ASEAN by 2025. Let's look at the definition of what do you exactly mean by improving the lives of households. How do you quantify households? What do you mean by improving?
So, as we approach this, we thought among ourselves long and hard. It cannot just be one-off gifts or endowments. Right? That you won't improve their lives over a longer term. So it needs to be sustainable. One of the things that we did a few years ago was to be a member of this organization called B4SI, which is stands for Business for Social Impact. It's a big international organization. Membership is not that big actually, so about 300 of the biggest companies globally. And some of the things that they do is come up with benchmarking. So one of the things that they have in this benchmark is to how do we measure impact of CSR and of social impact investment. It looks at three things. Number one, we call it input. Number two is output, and number three is outcomes. Input, output, outcomes. Input is what goes in. This can be by way of funding. This can be by way of employee volunteerism and so on. Secondly, is output. Output is that what happens. So, for example, you help a family through entrepreneurism mentoring program. So then you feel you see that their income has increased, right? So that's output.
So there's an educational aspect to it.
But we don't stop there. We go to the third one, and which is not many organizations actually employ, which is outcome. Outcome is what changes, right? So input, output, outcome, what goes in, what happens, and what changes. So it's more meaningful when we look at from the perspective of what changes, and we track that. And that has got to tie in very much with us being in the communities, because we need to know, right? It's not just a one-off, right?
Yeah.
So, and we work with our business units across the 10 ASEAN countries. So much so that what is happening today is that in terms of our community work, in terms of the work done by, say, Maybank Foundation, it's not on the side anymore. It's part and parcel of how we do business. So that's how we measure the success. We look at the outcomes, what changes. So it will not be one-off contribution, but it'll be, we track the development.
Now we have different segments in the population. So when you say that you want to reach all these households, how do you identify which households that you are targeting?
So we have 4 ways of that we go out to reach the 1 million I mentioned to you earlier. So the first one is through our Maybank Foundation programs. Number 2 is through our Zakat distribution. Number 3 is through deployment of low-cost financing. And number 4 is through our insurance schemes for the lower income households. So there's already definitions within them. So for example, for Maybank Foundation, we look at what are the areas that people don't go in, right? Because we want to make sure that we do help out in the areas that really needs the help.
Yeah.
So one area that we like to focus in is the disabled community, because we do have a sense that they are often marginalized and they do not necessarily get the sustainable assistance beyond the one of help. So we developed a program called RISE, which stands for Rich Independence and Sustainable Entrepreneurship, that seeks to identify disabled communities, and we work with them, and we through various CSOs, civil society organizations and NGOs, to come up with a program that leads them to sustainable business ownership. And we are running this program already in 4 countries throughout ASEAN. We're expanding to another 2 this year, and we've already helped more than 22,000 people. The top 40% of this group has experienced a longer-term income increase beyond 6 months of 340%. And this number has been validated by the University of Nottingham at least 4 times throughout the program. So that's one area that we look at. We try to see where people do not get access to the normal assistance. So that's one way we also how we differentiate.
Accessibility is key here. So from what you have seen and from what your organization have seen, how has this agenda of improving the lives of households helped benefit Maybank as a brand?
Well, one of the reasons, and not the primary reason, but one of the reasons why we organizations embark on CSR or all this kind of social progress is to help improve the goodwill and the reputation of the organization. And we see great success in this. So when we embark on these kind of programs, there's an immediate take up by the key stakeholders, including regulators.
Okay, so response has been good.
Response has been very good.
Okay, I'm sure Maybank has been embarking on this goal for some time now. It's not just now that you've set this specific agenda here. What are some of the examples of progress that you can share, some success stories across the region in improving the lives of households?
Yeah. Okay. So I mentioned the 4 areas. I can just go on in terms of, for example, Maybank Foundation. Yeah. Through the RISE program, which I mentioned earlier, for disabled communities, many of these people, and when I say give this kind of example, they've actually been on TV also to be showcased. So I'd like to quote one particular example, and this was one of our earliest participants in the RISE program, Malaysian, disabled, goes on a wheelchair. Yeah, no. He lost his feet, both his feet through an accident. Yeah. Had a small printing business, right? Was probably making between 1,000 to 2,000 ringgit. This was about 3 years back.
1 to 2,000 a month.
A month, yeah. Of course, the business was not regular when it came, but it's between 1,000 to 2,000 ringgit. He went through this program and he learned a lot of things because this RISE program is 3 solid years of training plus a 6-month mentoring. Yeah. Learn new things, we infuse into the program. And this program is very complex. It includes things like Blue Ocean strategy, customer segmentation, marketing, social media, and so on. So he and this particular gentleman worked closely with the university in Tanjung Malim. Yeah, University of Tanjung Malim, set up a shop there, and became so successful that he saw the income going up to about 30 to 40,000 ringgit a month, right? And became our SME customer. Applied for a loan from Maybank, 200,000 ringgit to buy a printing machine, and actually paid it off within like 1 year plus, and has become very successful. He has appeared on Bernama TV at least twice, I know, and as an inspiration to other people.
Yes, indeed. Aspiration, also inspiration, I think, to other households as well. What are the challenges in embarking on this goal of improving the households across ASEAN? What challenges have you encountered or that you foresee that you would have to go through?
Well, the old traditions sometimes are still there. I talk about shareholder primacy. The business of business has always been business, right? So, and when we try to infuse this, it's also a somewhat new thing, and internally among my bankers, which I have to say was not a difficult challenge because people were more than happy to help us do this. But when we go out, we had to deal with them because our work is not just in Malaysia, right? And it's easy in Malaysia because Maybank is well known. But for some of the other countries within ASEAN, we had to build up the connections. We had to build up the goodwill.
The concerted effort. You can't work in silos. I think many parties and quarters have to come together to achieve this goal, actually.
Absolutely. So when we work in the other countries, we need to work with local societies, and NGOs. I give you an example. One of our flagship programs under Maybank, through Maybank Foundation, is called Maybank Women Eco Weavers. This is something that I am particularly dear to. We look at ASEAN as a region, and often people talk about differences. Right? What's the difference between a Thai and a Laotian and Indonesia? So as a Maybank, because we're present in all this time ASEAN countries, we say, look, let's look at similarities instead of differences. What are the similarities that we can work on? So one of the similarities, and people don't even think of this at times, is that in at least 8, or if not 9, of the ASEAN countries, there's a rich history, culture, and tradition of weaving.
Okay.
Tenun, yeah, by women, yeah. You look at it, you think about it. Malaysia now is not that many areas in Pahang, in Terengganu, yep. But also in Sarawak, there's weaving. Indonesia, there's Philippines, and Myanmar, and Cambodia and Laos. So, and many of these countries, it's a dying art, yeah, because people don't want to. It's not easy, and it's traditionally been done by women, right? And in some of these countries, it was going. There's a danger of going extinct, right? So we thought, look, why don't we help to preserve this culture so that we are able to provide business opportunities or employment opportunities to these women, and at the same time preserve and ultimately maybe come up with an ASEAN culture, of weaving. So we did that, and today we have 8 centers for capacity building or silk weaving throughout ASEAN.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and we have we started with and it is still now our signature silk weaving training center in Tak Kiao, Cambodia, 1 hour 50 minutes outside Phnom Penh, right? So we wanted to build the first one there. Now we have many. We have a second one in Siem Reap, Cambodia. We have one in Zen Quang in Laos. We have 4 in Indonesia, Lombok and Padang. We have 1 in Sarawak. So we went there. The first one, it was just barren land, disused former paddy field. Yeah. So look at that. Okay, we're going to work. We identified a local partner. So we worked with the local community. So we invited the village heads to sit down there at the local community center. They were talking in Khmer. I could not understand a word, but they knew we were there with good intention to help their community. And it has been a lovely partnership that has grown so much today. We have trained at least 12 batches of 25 weavers each. So much so that this Maybank Women Eco-Weavers is recognized by ASEAN. It was exhibited at least twice during ASEAN Day at the ASEAN Secretariat in Jakarta. We have today trained more than 1,300 weavers. At the same time, we have helped support 1,200 families to grow mulberry trees, which is a key element in the silk production value chain, because you need mulberry leaves to feed silkworm, right? So it's a big ecosystem. It has contributed to communities throughout these countries. Yeah. So that's an example.
It's a big ecosystem, something that Maybank as a financial institution needs to understand. But I think what is also key is that you receive the awareness and also acceptance of the communities that you want to assimilate or weave in through. I think that's key for your journey to become a success. Now, Shahril, you mentioned that this word or this concept of sustainability has been popular as of late, but actually it has already been practiced even from 10 to 20 years back. But I think there's a greater push for it now. But what are some of the misconceptions that you have seen on sustainability?
To me, when you want to embark on a journey of sustainability, be it as an individual, but especially more so as an organization, you need to have the right intents and know how do you measure success, right? It's easy to be a tree hugger, right?
Yeah.
But tree hugging for the sake of tree hugging, you're not going to achieve much.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you should still allow for production, is assuming that you can do it in such a manner. That's why we have certifications in terms of forestry and so on, right? We still need to live our lives. It's not about halting everything. It's about sustainability. It's about how we are able to conduct our everyday lives in a way that we are able to allow future generations to enjoy what we are enjoying today, right? So that's the balance that we need to strike.
Okay. And I think we can see here from all the achievements and also stories that Maybank can share the milestones that you have achieved thus far, Maybank is paving the way for more organizations, for other leaders to also emulate the same steps in achieving sustainability. So what would you say are the best steps for businesses to take in addressing their responsibility to go beyond being just a business, but also to introduce goodwill, like you've mentioned before, to the communities? What should they do? How can they start?
Well, understand that times have changed. I mentioned the shift from shareholder privacy to stakeholder privacy, right? And not all businesses have accepted, especially the privately owned ones. I think that needs to change. You need to understand that businesses exist due to support of the community. Businesses exist due to what they reap from the earth and from the environment, right? And there is that duty of care that they need to give, and they need to give back to these stakeholders to ensure their own continuity and sustainability, right? Because when you talk about sustainability, it's not just about sustainability of the work, it's about sustainability of the organization itself.
Right.
And it has been proven. If you are not operating in a way that will address the needs of all the stakeholders, you yourself as an organization are looking at possible extinction. Right?
It starts from a change in the mindset, you would say.
Absolutely.
All right. And what's your perspective of introducing goodwill as a business? How does your experience, Shahril, translate into doing good through action? If you can elaborate on that.
Well, there's many aspects to that serving the needs of stakeholders, and by applying the concept of goodwill, there's many aspects to it. One of the things is that you should be looking at developing goodwill so that you are able to attract better talents.
Yeah.
Right. And many people forget about that. And today,
crucial element.
Yeah. Yes. And that's part of sustainability, to ensure that you have the right talent going on in the future. You want the smart ones, the young ones, the passionate ones. But this group of people are not now today willing to work for an organization which creates harm. They want to know, and there's enough empirical research on this. You have to know that the younger people, when they come into the workforce, they want to join an organization that they know is not just progressive, but also those that care for society, care for the environment. So that's one aspect of that goodwill building.
Yeah.
To attract the best talent.
Now, lastly, before we wrap up, as an advocate for sustainability and also goodwill, Shahril, what is your definition of good? Let's end this on a positive note. If you can give us your meaning, or how do you perceive good as?
I think the definition of how you measure that success would not be by yourself. It would be guided by how others look at you, right?
Okay.
I mean, it's easy to say, I've done good. Other people may not agree, right? So I think that definition of doing good is being able to leave an impression on others that today you are better than yesterday. This year, your organization is better than last year. And the matrices that apply in terms of, for an organization, it can be by way of paying better dividends. It can be by way of impacting more households across the region. It can be by way of reducing your own carbon emissions. And that will put for other people to say that you've done good. But it should be about doing better than what you did yesterday, doing better than what you did last year.
Okay, amazing. Thank you to Shahril, Azuar, Jimin, Chief Sustainability Officer of Maybank, for joining us and also providing really interesting insights into Maybank's goal to improve the lives of 1 million households across ASEAN by 2025. All the best to you, Shahril, and also to Maybank. You have been listening to an episode of The Social Circle. My name is Nadia Azmi. Take care and have a good day.